I think there's a lot of merit in the saying that project management is 80% communication. So in this video, I want to talk about how to build a great communication plan. If your project doesn't tell people as much as they want to know, if you don't keep communication ahead of events, then people will fill the vacuum with rumour. When people don't have any real information and they find out what's going on through gossip and rumour, then they lose confidence. They feel as if nobody's in control because rumour loves exaggeration and gossip creates alarm. The information we get from ill-informed sources is always more scary than reality. In some people's minds, change plus uncertainty equals conspiracy. It seems ironic that it was John F. Kennedy who said, "The great enemy of the truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic." An important part of your role on a project is to quash the rumours, and the way we do this is by communicating and communicating well. In fact, there's an argument that says you can never communicate enough until that point where people go, "It's too much." So you need to build effective communication plans. The basic form of project communication plan is a table, a matrix, a set of columns. And the easiest tool to use to create your communication plan is either a table, in a document, or in a spreadsheet. In this table, each row represents a new line of communication, and we use the columns to tell ourselves what we need to know about each communication that we're planning to put out. A simple communication plan may only have a few columns with the core information. A more thorough, robust communication plan may have up to 9 or even more columns. I'm going to take you through the 9 columns I consider most important, and to help you remember them, to bring them to mind when you're out there doing your job, I'm going to give each column a title that begins with T. And the first column is T for theme. For each communication, think about the theme of that communication. What's it about? And the second column is T for topic. What are you actually going to say? You could also think about this as T for tale, the tale you're going to tell, the story, the message itself. The next column is T for target. Who is this message aimed at? Who needs to receive this message, to understand this topic, to listen to this tale? This may be multiple stakeholders, or it may be simple communication aimed at one stakeholder in particular. The next thing to think about is T for tool. What is the medium you're going to use to communicate this message? For each stakeholder and for each message, there are going to be some tools, some media that will work better than others. There may not be a single optimum, but think through what's the appropriate medium to use for this stakeholder to receive that message. And the next T is T for tone. Are you going to be consultative, informative, commanding, demanding, requesting, requiring, or simply telling a story? Are you looking to gain information back from your stakeholders? Are you looking to gather their opinions, their ideas, their advice? Or are you looking to tell them something or ask them something or ask them to do something or request them to do something or require them to do something? Tone of voice is really important. And we've all had that experience of sending out a message and getting a reply that was wholly other than what we expected. The words were right, but the way we expressed them, the tone of voice in our message was wrong. If in planning your communication you think about the tone of voice you want, then when you've drafted your communication, when you prepared it, you can review it critically against that required tone of voice. And if you've ever sent out an email late at night when you're a bit frustrated and got a horrible reply the next morning, you'll know the importance of checking your messages for tone. Next is timing. Some communications follow a regular cycle, like project reports. Others come at specific times. So what is the correct timing? If it's a regular communication, then what's the frequency? If the project's going to evolve, how might that frequency evolve through the life of the project? If it's a one-off communication, when's the best time to issue it? Think about the project events, think about what the stakeholder is going to be concerned with. The ideal time from the point of view of your project may not be ideal from the point of view of a stakeholder. If they've got urgent considerations, then sending a message at that time may mean it doesn't get properly read, may not get read at all, and it certainly may not get the consideration that you want for it. We all get overloaded at times, so think about your stakeholders and their business cycle. At number 7, it's T for test. How are you going to test to measure that your communication has been effective and achieved what you want of it? This is about how you're going to gather feedback, how you're going to assess the feedback, and arguably what feedback you want. What is a good result? Tests can be as structured as sending a questionnaire or asking for a reply, or they can be as unstructured as observing the expression on the face of your stakeholder when you tell them something in person. But think about how you're going to be sure that the communication you have sent into the world has had the result that you want, and crucially, how you're going to spot if it hasn't. Number 8 is the teller, the person who is going to create the message. Who is responsible for each line of your communication plan? And finally, at number 9, T for tick. Who is going to be the person who signs off the communication before it goes out? Now, some communications won't need that sign-off. The person who you allocate to take responsibility for it can sign it off and do it themselves, but others are going to be crucially important. It may be your responsibility as project manager. It may be a stream lead. It may be a communication manager. It may be someone as senior as the client representative or the project sponsor who needs to authorize a communication before it goes out. Thinking about this is an important part of good project governance. So there we have it. 9 important considerations for any communication, and therefore the basis of a robust project communication plan. But sometimes you need something more for particular stakeholders. You will have identified some stakeholders as absolutely crucial to the success of your project, your key stakeholders, your apex stakeholders, however you want to describe them. So you may want to build a specific communications plan for those individual stakeholders. So for each stakeholder, you will start your communications plan by articulating what you know about that stakeholder. Crucial information about who they are, their roles, their responsibilities, and perhaps their communication preferences. You'll also think about who is best placed to communicate with that stakeholder, who already has a relationship with them, and how does that relationship work. You may also want to think about people who are not well placed to communicate with that stakeholder. Next, think about what you know about them, and in particular, what is their stance towards the project? Are they supportive? Are they antagonistic? Are they considering their position? And how much power and influence do they have? It's likely, because they're a key stakeholder, that they'll have quite a lot of influence, quite a lot of power. And what is your strategic stance towards that stakeholder? What do you want to achieve with them? Do you want to achieve support, active promotion of your project, or do you want to learn from them and get their input to make sure the project works well? Next, think about the key messages you'll need to get across to them and perhaps schedule them out over time as you expect the relationship to evolve and the project to progress. And think about the communication media that you'll want to use with that stakeholder. Although you've already thought about who has the relationships and who doesn't, nominate someone to take responsibility as the point person to mark that stakeholder and to stay in contact with them, to give that stakeholder a point of contact in the project should they need to. And because you're likely to be considering important key stakeholders, make sure that person is someone that they will consider suitably important for them to speak to. You may want to include a budget for communicating with that stakeholder, and then, crucially, schedule out line by line the communications you expect to make, and this part of your stakeholder communication plan will, of course, evolve with the project. You can use the 9 T's, but if you want to keep it simpler, what I consider to be the most important information in your line by line breakdown of communications with that stakeholder are the message, the medium, the tone, the timing, and the person who is going to prepare and initiate that communication. So we've gone through 2 of a number of communication tools, but the 2 most useful, the 2 most widely used, and therefore the 2 most effective communication tools that you can use on your project. If project management truly is 80% communication, and I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that to a first approximation it is, then great project communication and a great project communication plan is an essential component of your project management. As a result, use these 2 plans in your next project, make them part of your toolkit, and you'll become a better project manager. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And why not subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.